Hey there, writing cadets! Welcome back to the Moving Right Along podcast, the podcast by young writers for young writers. We're your hosts, Ruby,
Ray,
and Kat.
The gang's back together, y'all. I clawed my way out of that well that a mysterious figure shoved me into.
Very mysterious.
Yeah, I wonder. That is interesting. I bet it was. I bet you don't have any clue who it is, and I bet the person will never be found. And it's just a mystery. We'll just leave it as a fun mystery.
Yeah, but I'm so glad to be back. I'm glad the three hosts were back together again.
Yeah,
we haven't been together in so long.
Getting the band back together.
I'm so glad too. Boy, it's just radiating off of me.
Kat is just a ball of joy right now.
I'm skipping
Ruby
around.
is back.
She's just jumping around. You guys can't see it, but she's jumping around. You know, it's just ecstatic.
She's practically vibrating.
I know, it's crazy. Well, for today's episode, we're going to be talking about what we would say to our younger selves as writers. So we have a little bit of advice for everyone, and Ruby's going first, so go ahead, Ruby.
Yeah. Okay. So I have some advice for you today. It's not, is it advice? I think, well, when we say childhood selves, I will say some of this is definitely for my childhood self. Some of this is for me like 3 months ago. So we'll get into that.
That's childhood. I count it as
childhood.
Yeah,
I'm secretly a child. Okay. Yeah, but my first bit is just to focus more on loving what you're writing and not writing something publishable. So when I first started writing, I was 12 years old. So, obviously my work was not good. But in my mind, I was so fixated on the idea of writing something that was good enough to be published. And I think because of that, I lost a lot of joy in the writing that I had when I was younger. Where I just I did it for fun. I didn't do it with the intention of this is something that I want someone to read and think is good. And I think there's nothing wrong with going after publishing your works, but I think it shouldn't be your focus, I think when you're revising, maybe you should be thinking more about, okay, how would this gear towards being published, but I think it shouldn't be your motivator. Your motivator should be that you love writing and that you want to do it. So that's my first little bit. My second one, thank you. Yeah, I have three little bits for you today. I've been doing a British accent all day. I'm really sorry, Kat. It's alright.
Yeah, and again, guys, Kat is so happy that Ruby is back. Just to reiterate that.
I'm just saying, so happy that you're back. I'm just really excited.
Best friends. Okay, well, moving on. My second thing, this is more recent, is that feedback is important, but not so important that it should stop you from writing. I think a big part of my journey as a writer is that feedback almost used to paralyze me. And it's not even that the feedback was unfair or that it was particularly harsh. It would just make me be wow, I never want to write again. I suck so much. And this happened to me 2 months ago. I got feedback that made me lose my mind. I was oh my gosh. I questioned whether or not I even wanted to be a writer in the first place. I questioned whether or not this book was as good as I thought it was, because in my mind, it was the best book I had ever written. And yet I got, which it was, because the more you write, the better your books get. But it felt it was I was oh my gosh, I actually really suck at writing books. And it was my 6th book. It felt I was at the point where I was shouldn't I not suck so bad anymore? But I think a big part of learning to take feedback, because feedback is important, like I said, but I think a big part of it is you need to discern what feedback is actually helpful to you and what just demotivates you. And you need to figure out, okay, this piece of feedback really demotivated me. It made me really just not want to write anymore. So how do I take it and how do I turn it into something that actually helps me? Which I think that's very much a learning curve. Only you know how you can adapt your feedback to work for you. Only you really know that. So I'd say I just trust your gut when it comes to feedback, and definitely consider all the feedback that you get. But like I said, think about, okay, is this actually something that can help me, or is this something that just makes me feel like a terrible writer? Because if somebody tells you oh, I actually just really don't like your style, what are you supposed to say to that? It's your style. That's the sort of feedback that you should not be taking and, really letting into your writer brain. So just learn to figure out what's helpful, what's not helpful. Anyways, I talked a lot for that one, but it's fine. Okay.
So, Ruby's writing is great. I have read a bit, and it is
Aw.
fantastic.
It really is.
And whoever
Guys.
that was
I'm
wrong.
gonna cry. Thank
I'll
you.
fight them.
I'll
Okay,
fight.
back to being mean again.
Oh, that's
Ruby
okay.
sucks.
Oh wow. Thanks, guys. But okay, my last thing. This is also something I had to reevaluate recently. I put like 10 exclamation marks on this. It's supposed to be fun. I think when we're young writers often, what we're doing is we're not getting paid. This isn't our job. And I think we lose sight of like what's supposed to be fun about writing. And we become so fixated on, I have to be good enough. I have to be this standard. I have to be as good as this author. I have to be better than this author. I think we get so stuck up in that we lose the part of writing that is supposed to be fun. Because in reality, if you're not getting paid for writing, writing is supposed to be your passion. It's not supposed to be your work. So I think that I got really stuck in this for a while, honestly, where I was just forcing myself to write when I wasn't even really enjoying myself anymore. And I just took myself way too seriously for too long. I was very much like, I am going to write this social commentary that blows people's minds. I'm going to change the world. And it's like, girl, you're 15. Like, calm down. Sorry, Ray.
That sounds a little
I was literally about to say
a little personal.
and then I remembered Ray was here. I was like, oh no, I can't say that.
I'm talking to 15-year-old me, not 15-year-old
Yeah.
Ray.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
15-year-old me was very different from 15-year-old you. Don't worry. Yeah, but I think I didn't have fun with it. And I think I also got so caught up in like, I am a writer, I need to write, that I was forcing myself to write when I didn't really want to. So, like I said, writing before you're published, it's not your job. It's supposed to be your passion. If you don't feel passion for it, maybe take a break. Maybe writing's not for you. Like, you have to think about these things. So, yeah, that's my last piece of advice.
Honestly, I'm just jumping in here because I want to talk about it
jump
too.
in, girl.
The whole it's supposed to be fun thing. I remember when I was like, I started like really taking writing seriously when I was like maybe 11 or 12 or something, and I was writing like this book that I obviously never finished because it's me. I never finish anything, but but I was writing it and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be like famous. I'm gonna be the best author there ever was. I was like, girl, you're writing the worst book that's ever been known to man. No, stop, no. So yeah, I definitely agree. Don't take yourself so seriously.
No.
You can't.
Like, I if there's any 12-year-olds out there listening, you might not be writing a New York Times bestseller. I'm really sorry. You could be.
Maybe not.
But maybe just consider, maybe you should just like learn to write before you write your New York Times bestseller. That's my biggest advice, because I didn't give myself the time to learn, and I still am learning. Like, I'm not pursuing publishing because I think I still need to learn a lot more about craft. And I've written 6 novels, guys. We never stop learning. But I think, yeah, sometimes you just have to not focus so much on like, I'm going to publish this, and sometimes you just have to focus on like, I'm going to learn how to write even better through this writing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but I'm sorry if I dampened any 12-year-olds' dreams. I'm sure you are doing amazing. Very few 12-year-olds write books, so keep that in mind, or even just write in general. So you're doing great. Don't worry.
Yeah, just live, laugh, learn, guys. Live, laugh, learn. Yeah, I think that's all great advice. I definitely agree with the not taking yourself too seriously. That's also, I will speak more on that at a later date, a later moment in this episode. But next I'm going to be reading out some advice from our lovely social media manager, Cassette. I was given this job because, as everyone knows, me and Cassette are best friends. We're besties. So we are BFFs. So what Cassette says, and she is just spitting straight wisdom here. She says, stop pressuring yourself to publish when you're a teenager. It will happen when you're ready, and you might not be ready for a really long time. And for her, she says she's not ready even at 19. She's 20 now, she's just turned 20. And Simone also seconds this. Please don't compare yourself to those that have early success. That's the exception, not the rule. Very true. Very true.
Dang, Simone.
Yeah. Oh,
that's such a good way
exactly.
to put it.
that
Honestly,
really is.
like I look
Looking
at authors.
you.
Oh my gosh, girl, that's what I was thinking of.
Simone's typing,
Same.
looking at you, Chloe going, and
Sorry, Graveyard.
Simone.
Yeah, no,
It's true, though.
honestly,
It's a lot less likely. Most, a lot of writers, you think about some of the writers that publish when they're like in their 60s, George R. R. Martin is publishing, and I don't know how old he is, but he's pretty old now.
old, I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. But like, you think of these writers, a lot of them, writing is one of those things where you will get better with time. It's not like a lot of other professions, like for example, like singers, they normally are at that peak singing ability from like 20 to like 40. With writing, it's like the opposite. You tend to just get better and better with time. So like, the idea that you're gonna hit your peak when you're still in school, no, incorrect. Cassette also says it's okay to restart a draft if you hate it, but you can't hate every single draft. You have to learn what you can live with. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty. I
The
mean,
last piece of advice. Oh, sorry, Ruby.
oh no, you're good. Last one.
Okay.
We'll do
Last piece
responses.
of advice from Cassette is querying sucks. You can wait a little longer before you try it.
Ditto! Oh my gosh. Have either of you guys queried?
Yes.
No.
Yes? Okay. Great, don't do it.
It does suck.
Querying,
And the worst is,
honestly,
avoiding it at all
worst
costs.
is if you've gotten a full, you instantly think, you're like, if you get a full, you're like, oh, that's it, I'm published then. And then you get like a, for those who don't know, this full request is like one that agent sends you back a thing saying they want to see your whole work. And you instantly start thinking, oh, so this is it. I'm now going to become like this. And then you get back the rejection and you're like,
yeah.
Rip.
Yeah,
like, never
querying-
mind.
Oh my gosh. I queried for the first time. Don't do what I did. I queried for the first time when I was probably 14. And I regret it dearly because I looking back on that book, looking back on like that query letter, oh my gosh, it was horrible. And then also just like I just feel like you don't need to like rush into querying. I think a lot of people will finish their first draft, they'll finish like 1 or 2 rounds of revisions, they'll be like, all right, time to query, and then they get rejected, and then it's rinse, repeat. And I mean, I get like the desire. If you're at like a later stage in your writing, I get that, like wanting to keep on going. But I think if you're in like the early stages, which most young writers are, I think wait for querying until you feel like you're putting your best foot forward. Because, like, when I reread some of my books, I'm like, that was not my best, like, the books I queried. I was like, that's not the best I could do. Yeah, but just don't try until you know that you're doing your absolute best with it. Because I didn't try my best with querying, and I think that's why I had such abysmal request rates. So, it's just, but querying also, it doesn't have to, like, it's not a measure of whether or not you're a good writer. Just keep that in mind. Publishing is a business. Publishing is a business made to make money. And if they don't think your book's going to make money, they're not going to accept you. They're not going to request for your stuff. They're not going to offer representation. And just because your book might not, in their mind, make money doesn't mean it's not good. I think that's just like the most important thing to remember with querying. Oh my gosh, querying makes my stomach turn, makes me break a sweat. So unpleasant.
Oh
That is great.
Right, you'll be fine. Okay. Also, I will say, everybody, I will say, querying, guys, we're very dramatic about querying, okay? It's pretty much just emailing, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but those emails are...
Yeah, they can be emotionally draining. They can definitely be emotionally draining.
Yeah.
I think
I'm already scared of emails, so...
To query, I think the best thing to go with querying is just to go in with no expectations, which is really hard because you want to go in with the expectation of there's going to be somebody who instantly looks at your book and be like, amazing. But I think why I would recommend people to wait if they're like very young, because when you're that young, you've not built up that like I'm saying, talk about most people haven't built up that like emotional resilience to being told like they're gonna rip you to shreds. I'm sorry, they're gonna take your heart and they're gonna stomp all over it. Like, you just need that time to get used to rejections, being told that, you know. So I would definitely say wait so that you don't end up getting discouraged, because you know at the end of the day, querying, it's just one part of writing. It's not the most important bit. It's just a facet of it. you could always self-publish, you could always do this, you can always do that. Just because a literary agent is telling you that they don't like your book, that doesn't mean nobody ever will. This is very subjective, and what sells is very subjective, and that's why I think for some people you just need to wait a bit, because you don't want to feel like, when you get those querying responses back, it can be very disheartening to see like no after no after no, and you're like, am I even good enough anymore? And you're like, I don't even know anymore. But you are good enough. You just need to wait a bit of time, and also be able to see your work not as a part of you, but as like something you've created. It's like separate from you. It's not a reflection of who you are. Them saying no isn't saying no to you. They're just saying no to your work. And if you know your work is good, then that's all that matters. What other people say.
Mic drop.
Jeez.
That's honestly such good advice, though. Because, like, querying is, even if you end it with an agent, you're going to get rejected a ton. Like, that's just, it's going to happen. Even if you get the ideal case scenario where you get, like, an overnight request, overnight offer of representation. I forgot the word. But yeah, you just need thick skin, which isn't easy.
Because even if you, like, let's say, even if you do get a literary agent, and even if you do get through that, like, even if it's clear sailing from querying to getting your agent to getting published or whatever, you got to remember that then there's going to be people who don't like your book, like just general people who's not going to like your book.
Yeah.
So building up that kind of resilience to having people tell you that they just don't like it, you really like have to just work on that over and over and over again, and just letting people
so true
hurt you, but like not hurt you anymore.
Querying is just the first hurdle in a long road.
Yeah.
But it's not easy, but it's also not impossible. So
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
So true.
Okay, is it my turn? All right, it's my turn. This is my advice.
Get ready!
Okay, so my first piece of advice, which is probably the biggest one I can give anybody ever, and not even in writing in general, just in everything, ever. Your direction matters so much more than your speed. And this is something like, even now, I have to tell myself this, because, you don't need to be, I mean, we've talked a lot about how, like, you're probably not going to get published when you're a teenager. There's small exceptions, but it's probably not going to happen. And you don't need to move so fast, because something that I've sort of had to tell myself is that life, I know it's like a huge saying that people are like, oh, life is short, like, YOLO, I don't know. But, like, life is actually really long for most people. Like, you have so much time to do what you want, and if you accomplish all your dreams, like, next year, you have nothing else to do. You have to spread it out, and that's the fun of it. You get to work on things over time. And if you're moving in a certain way, you don't need to be going, like, supersonic speed. Otherwise, quality goes down, and that's not fun. Quality over quantity, guys. Quality over quantity.
That is such good advice. One Direction.
Oh my god.
New Directions. I think of Direction, I think of either Glee or I think of One Direction.
Yeah.
But that is actually
like
good advice. I'm just
Harry Styles.
Harry Styles believes in you.
How did we get to Harry Styles?
That's the advice. That's our tagline for this episode is Harry Styles believes in you.
I just love how we literally just went from like deep and emotional advice to Harry Styles believes in you in like 2 seconds.
I'm sorry, guys. This is just how my brain works. I just jumped from one point to another.
No, I love it.
Are you telling us about how Harry Styles believes in us, Ray? Tell us more.
Oh, yeah, okay, so my second piece of advice is that, I always tend to think that, like, I'm falling so far behind, but the thing is, you're literally comparing yourself to people who are so much older than you, who have been doing this for so much longer than you, and have so much more experience than you. Like, even just sometimes I compare myself to, like, published authors, and those published authors are, like, 30 years old. That's 2 times my age. So, like, that, you're not on the same level, and you shouldn't be. I mean, if you are, good for you, but you're probably not. So you're not falling behind. You're just moving slower, and that's fine. So that's my second
Valid.
piece of advice.
Give us more of the finger guns when you finish.
Yeah,
Finish it.
finger
It's a great night.
guns.
I love Ruby just screaming valid at me after.
I'm moral support.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
yeah, because even like think about like where those writers started. Like they would have started at the same point that you start. Everybody starts at the same point, not being able to write, and then you make progress maybe at different speeds. But like you said, it's not about the speed; it's about the direction. One direction.
Yeah.
Direction
Harry
towards
Styles.
Harry Styles.
This is great.
Bet y'all miss me.
Just give me a minute.
Where's the hole? I wanna chuck Ruby down the well again, please. I mean,
It was you?
No.
Wow, I'm so surprised. Who would have ever
It was
guessed?
not a confession. It was not a confession.
This is crazy. Next episode, you're gonna be in prison.
We're gonna put you.
The Wells Cat's going to prison. Anyways, I have taken us off track again because of Harry Styles.
Okay, so
last piece.
My last piece of advice is less serious, and is very pointed and directed towards my 12-year-old self. It's not deep and emotional. It's cringy.
Rip yourself to
I'm not even gonna elaborate on that. It just
Honestly,
is.
So true. In the moment, I feel like a lot of my writing, I'm like, wow, this is the deepest thing I've ever written. Like, I am changing the world right now. And then I read back on it like a couple months later and I'm like, oh my gosh. That is not good.
Yeah.
But,
the amount of, like, in my 12-year-old writing, it's just the amount of scenes when the main character is, like, breaking down and sobbing, and I'm like, what? Why? What?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, 12-year-old me would write, like, angsty romances.
Oh, it was
and then,
so
like, I reread it and I'm like, ew! Nobody would ship this. Not even I do anymore.
Like, break up. Just
stop.
Break up.
Yeah.
So yeah,
don't
that's my advice.
Yes, but what you're writing right now may be cringy to you later, but it doesn't matter. Keep on doing it.
Yeah.
Everything is cringy in hindsight. That doesn't mean that it's not good. It's just think about trends. Like now we look back on trends and we're like, ew, that was really cringy. But in the moment, it was like, yes, everybody loves this. So.
Yeah,
things just aging.
We listen back to this. We'll listen back to this episode and think it's cringe. So you know everything.
That's practically a guarantee. We're gonna listen back like 2 days later and think it's cringe. That's not gonna take much time.
I think we've mentioned on this podcast before that we can't even listen to the first episode of our podcast.
We don't talk about the first episode.
Because, you know,
handle thinking about
in life
it.
in generally, you just have to get through the cringe to get to the good bits.
So
and have we got to the good bits yet? Maybe not. But you just have to keep going. You just have to keep trying over and over again. And at some point, you'll get to the good bits. Yeah. Any more advice for us, Ray?
Beautiful.
No, that was it.
Thank you.
It's your turn, Kat.
Good work, Ray.
So my advice to myself, you know, is just you are not. I feel like we've been ripping on our younger self so much, but genuinely, you are not as good as you think you are. But that is okay. It is okay that you're not as good as you think you are. Because I did think there's this really interesting phenomenon that I like to talk about, which is called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is basically the worse you are at something, you tend to think you are better at something when you are worse at it. And then the better you get, the worse you think you are at it because you know more about it. And that is so true with writing, because when I first started, I thought it was amazing. I was like, little 12-year-old me was like, I'm like a genius. I literally remember in an exam, actually no, I'm not going to say this is too bad. This is really embarrassing. I don't think I can say it and have it be put out into the world because it's just so embarrassing. I mean, if we cut this bit, but basically during one of my, you know, the like 11 plus to get into grammar school, I stopped doing it halfway through and just started writing instead. I didn't do the exam. I just stopped doing it and started writing
You said
instead.
no grammar school
I
for
said
me.
no. I said no.
I'm a
And the thing
writer.
because I missed getting into the grammar school by 1 mark because I stopped doing the exam halfway through.
No.
I know!
That's
It's so bad.
funny.
I know, that's so bad. Anyways,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
That's so bad.
Wow, you were
But-
just so dedicated.
No. Dedicated to the craft. Anyways, what I was saying is that basically with writing, you know, when you are young and you first start off, you think you're gonna think pretty much everything you write is the most brilliant thing you've ever written. Generally, I mean, maybe you're not as narcissistic as I was as a child, but I definitely thought everything I wrote was like amazing. And you know, that's okay. Sometimes you gotta start off with that high level of confidence just to keep you going. But then when people start telling you that actually these are things you need to fix, you gotta just let them tear you to shreds, because that is the best way to get stronger and better at writing, and you cannot allow yourself to take it personally. Because the thing is, you've got to kind of think of it as like leveling up or doing like a training montage, and the more people sort of rip your work to shreds, the more that people give you that bad feedback, the better you'll get, the stronger you'll get. Don't you want that? Don't you want to get stronger? What is more interesting as a plotline to you? Is it someone just being naturally gifted at something, or is it someone who works hard? You know what? In the High School Musical film, Sharpay should have gotten the role. Because why?
So
because
true.
Sharpay worked for it, and Gabriella did not. That is the truth.
Hot take. Hot take.
The thing is, if you
Give
do
me your
get published,
autograph.
you want an interesting story. You don't want to be the person saying, hey, no, I wrote one book and it was fabulous and I got published and blah, blah, blah. If you do that, then you don't get to say, well, actually, no, I really had to work hard. I really, really had to own my craft. And also, do you want to be a prodigy? Because let's say you do get published at the age of 14, where do you go from there? Because now you're published, and then where do you go? You're like a prodigy, right? That's not great. You don't want to be a prodigy. You want to be someone who's doing this for the long term, right? You want to be someone who's writing not because they want people to say, wow, they're like a prodigy at writing. They're like, look at them being so young and being published. You want to be able to do this for the, like, you know, for however long, the long term you want to do it. So you don't want it to just be reliant on how fast you've done it, but actually on the quality of your writing and how like sustained that like writing can be. And the thing is, if you start off with not having gotten any criticism, if you start off with like people just telling you you're so great and brilliant, you're never going to improve. You're going to get to 30 and you'll still be writing the same way that you were when you were 14 because no one ever told you that you needed to improve. So let the people tear you to shreds. Let them rip you apart.
Yeah.
Let them absolutely destroy you.
Yeah.
Gonna be okay.
Wow.
Play the
It's
long
gonna be
con,
okay.
guys.
I know.
Yeah,
Like
play the
I
long
always,
con.
what you said always, it makes me think of like what I always say to myself is like, I don't want to be good for my age. I just want to be good. Like that's the way I look at it right
Yes.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
I know, because it's like you don't want to like you don't want somebody to be like, oh, they're a good writer for like a little 17-year-old. Like no, you want to just be a good writer. Like isn't that
Yeah.
the way you want to
Agreed.
be acknowledged? So I always think of that.
Mhm.
Dang, Kat, that was some wisdom.
That was
Exactly.
I love
And
the
also-
I love the
Sorry.
contrast though, where I'm like, not all feedback doesn't need to hurt you, and then you're like, let them rip you apart.
I know. Just
Oh
our
my
opposite
gosh.
personalities.
I know,
Yeah,
different
no.
things work for different people.
Yeah. It is hard though. Like I do acknowledge that it is very difficult getting that feedback, and it should still be fun. You should always let your writing be fun, because it should be fun. The other piece of advice is writing doesn't have to be a career for you. A lot of the time we think, oh, okay, I like writing, that must mean that I want to get published, right? You make the like jump from A to B. Whereas like that's not how other hobbies work, you know. People who do like knitting don't think, oh, I want to become a professional knitter now. Like you know, that's not how other hobbies work. So I think often this overemphasis of making writing your career can often like take away the joy of writing. You can just write because you just like it. You don't have to become someone who's aiming to get published. I know some people, well, when you tell them that you're a writer, they'll be like, oh, so when are you getting published? You just ignore those people. They are irrelevant. don't listen to them. You can just write because you enjoy it. Third thing is find your own style. You gotta copy some people first. You gotta copy all of your writers, the writers that you like. You gotta infringe that copyright first. You gotta literally just plagiarize everything, and then you gotta make it your own. So you gotta start off basically being a copy of another writer, because that is, I feel like, how every writer starts, is that you just start off writing the thing that you like the most. You'll probably just start off writing like whatever book that you like. Like I think one of my first stories I ever wrote literally just ripped straight off of Pokemon. So, you gotta plagiarize a little bit at the beginning so that you can get better and better and make your own style. But eventually you gotta find your own style. And, some people are gonna like your style, some people aren't. It's just the way it goes. You can't please everybody. That's okay.
Yes.
That's okay.
Let's just put an emphasis on don't take credit if you plagiarize.
Yes, don't take credit.
Post it. Don't send it to anyone. This is for your learning purposes.
Learning purposes plagiarism. Learning plagiarism. Don't plagiarize at the beginning. Just plagiarize, but you just got to get better by yourself afterwards. But I feel like everyone's first book, or not first book, but everyone's first piece of writing is a copy of whatever they've read before. Or maybe that was just me. Maybe I was just a little plagiarism.
I tried to write a Marvel movie in book form, so I used the same names and everything, which is also otherwise known as fan fiction. So maybe write fan fiction. I think fan fiction is a good way to start as well. A lot of people get their start on writing in fanfic, so
exactly.
That's another route you can go, as opposed to just straight plagiarism.
Plagiarism is fun. I'm a little magpie. Stealing.
You're gonna get us canceled.
We don't condone plagiarism, guys.
Don't condone plagiarism. I would never.
The Moving Right Along podcast crew and hosts do not condone the act of plagiarism.
No.
Just saying.
We condone learning from other writers.
That's, yes.
Learn from other writers. Don't plagiarize. And don't take credit for, an idea that's not yours, obviously.
Yes,
if you do that, then you suck. So never take credit for an idea that is not yours, but also accept that originality. I think what I'm trying to say is originality is overrated. You're gonna think that you can write the most original story, but honestly, 9 times out of 10, all stories are pretty much the same. I mean, most books follow the same 3-act structure of person has something wrong going in their life, then they have to go on their journey, and then they gotta fix a problem, or they don't fix a problem, basically. So, don't feel a pressure to be original, especially at the beginning. You're gonna find your own voice and everything. You don't need to be the most original writer ever.
Nope, don't worry too much, guys. All stories basically have been told. Stories have been being told for thousands and thousands of years. Don't stress yourself too much. Okay, well, that was the last of the hosts / crew. I think my brain just full on stopped. Okay, I'm gonna redo that. Okay. And that was the last of our host / crew moving right along, advice to our younger selves. And now we've got some submissions from our Instagram. So we're very excited. Thank you to everybody who submitted. So we're going to share some of those. So firstly, we have from @theAshyCreed. Their advice is to push through the first few chapters and don't stay caught up in them. First drafts are going to be messy. And I cannot stress more how true this is. That, honestly, first drafts, I always get to a point with my first draft of all my books. I get about to the 50K, 60K mark, and I'm like, I hate this so much. This is the worst thing I've ever written in the whole entire world. But what you have to do is you just have to push past it. You just have to push through and take a break. Just get to the end is my best advice for you. And it's basically their advice here. Just push through, because it's going to suck either way. But it can only suck if it exists. So think about that. You need it to exist.
It is a very good point.
Yeah. First drafts are hard, though.
What Ruby said. First drafts, I can't really talk because I've never even finished a first draft, but maybe I should advice. I will. Someday. But the next piece of advice that we have from Instagram is from @CJWrites with a lot of S's. They said, "Don't write straight romance. Make everything gay, and you'll thank me later." Did you guys make me read this one on purpose? Because I feel like
honestly,
you did.
I didn't, but I was thinking it. I was like, Ray would like this advice. I didn't mean to do it. It just happened.
Shout out to CJ Wright.
Well, it worked. I mean,
Oh wait, is it my one now?
Yeah,
yes.
it's your turn.
Yeah, from Abby with an EY writes things. Stop researching how to be a better writer and just write. You'll figure it out. Very true. I'm that person who is like, I feel like I just need to do more writing courses, and then the more writing courses you do, the amount of times they'll just tell you to just start writing, and you're like,
literally.
oh, okay.
To a certain extent, you can only gain so much from reading other people's knowledge. Like, you can only gain so much. Sometimes you just have to do it. You just have to have the action. Without action, like, the writing courses are useless. I'm just going to tell you right now. Without the writing, there's no point. So make sure you're actually writing. But that is very good advice. Because I've definitely Googled, when I first started, I definitely Googled how to be a better writer. There's no way. Like, no way.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Okay. And our last submission that we're going to be sharing from Instagram is from @ZabeWrites.
Zabe!
Yeah, Zabe!
I just have to give them a shout out. I love Zabe. Okay, continue.
We love ZabeWrites. Their advice is, your writing doesn't have to be perfect now, so don't give up on it for the future. That's very true. As a perfectionist, yep.
Revisions do a lot.
I know.
A lot.
Like, literally.
Rely on the revisions.
Completely
honestly.
Changes the book. Like, completely. And even if you feel like you aren't completely changing the book, you are. Like, you are. Don't even worry about it. So, revising, it makes a world of a difference.
Thank you to all of our followers who sent in advice. Remember, you can follow us at Moving Right Along Podcast on Instagram. We post stuff. And
sure do.
You can also be featured in a future episode. So just keep listening. Don't stop listening. Go back when you finish an episode, just go back and start from the beginning. And just keep listening. Don't stop.
Yeah, sure, do that.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for writing advice. I feel like I've learned a lot. I wish I just had a time machine now so that I could go back in time and restart my writing journey. But, time marches on. Time stops for no one, and we must continue down this writing path. And for this week's writing prompt, writing thing, we do encourage you. We encourage you to take time to reflect on where you started as a writer and where you are now. And you'll be surprised at how much you've grown. And if you want to tell us, if you want to message us on the Instagram or shout us out in your story and tell us how you have grown as a writer, please do, and tag us and we will repost it onto our story. So tell us how you've grown. Where did you start from? Maybe when you began as a little wee lass in Scotland for some reason.
A wee little lass.
A wee little lass in Scotland. You also thought that you were the best writer in the entire world, and then you found out that it wasn't true, and that there's lots of very talented writers out there, and that's very annoying, but
This is very off topic, but I just feel like everything Kat says, it just increasingly gets darker as she goes on. Like, I need to say it out loud.
Sometimes we just let her talk and we just see how far she'll spiral.
I know. It's not good. You just gotta cut me off at some point because I don't know what's gonna come out of my mouth.
I just always want to let you finish because sometimes you just say the most interesting things.
Yeah. By that you mean like the most unhinged thing.
Yeah, that too.
It's alright. Just stop me. Just get Simone to just mute me. Get the mute button. Get the mute button and just mute me when I talk for too long.
Might do that.
Should I wrap it up?
Yes, let's wrap it up.
Okay. So after all that's it for today, Writing Cadets, and we'll see you on our next adventure.
And that's the end.
Sparkles.
Fireworks.
Thank you for listening to the Moving Right Along podcast, made possible by the Young Writers Initiative. Make sure to keep tuning in every Saturday this summer as we upload new content. Also, leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at Moving Right Along Podcast or find us on tywi.org. And while you're there, why not join our Discord server, The Writers Town? Thank you to our team, without whom this wouldn't be possible. Our producer, Simone, co-producer, Jasmine, and social media manager, Cassette. All music is by Kevin MacLeod at filmmusic.io. Today you heard Island Street Party, and all sound effects are from the Free Sound Project.